Many game series have a black sheep in the family. It's the game that didn't land well, that maybe tried something new but it didn't appeal to new fans nor sate the existing fans. It could just be that it was lacking quality all the way through compared to its predecessors and could essentially kill a series. And that's what happened with Rainbow Cotton way over 20 years ago. Rainbow Cotton was originally developed for the Sega Dreamcast, but it was outsourced from Success, who had made all of these Cotton shoot-'em-ups before, and it was a great series that had a pedigree to it. But Rainbow Cotton missed the mark entirely due to it being new hardware and not the normal people working on it. It essentially killed the Cotton series because they didn't touch shoot-'em-up genres again until 2021's Cotton reboot, and since then Cotton has been on a fantastic ascension, repurposing old games, adding new entries, but also re-envisaging old games too. Rainbow Cotton is a remaster plus because it's got quality of life improvements and it's trying to fix a lot of the problems that the original game had. But it leads me to the question of how good can you polish a game that was poor, or are you just putting lipstick on a pig or polishing a turd? And the answer for me with this game is it's somewhere in the middle. This is definitely the best version of Rainbow Cotton that there is out there, and it looks beautiful and there's moments of pure joy, but it's also tarnished with some of the basic fundamentals of how this game was built that the game can simply not avoid. With Rainbow Cotton, you're playing on an on-rail shooter from behind Cotton, very similar to the Space Harrier games or most other on-rail shooters that you get. Cotton takes up quite a large amount of the space on the screen, but you also kind of need to look at two things. One, where Cotton is, and two, where your shot is going, because Cotton will lazily follow where your shot is. And that makes sense once you get used to it, but sometimes Cotton's quite lazy in her movement, so you can't get out of the way of enemy attacks that are very tightly choreographed in a nice and satisfying way. This leads to some crazy bumping and grinding, either on bits of the scenery, on other enemies, and hearing her go ow, ow, ow all the way through, especially as the fairies that you collect along the way start chatting amongst themselves all on top of it. It does sound like Anime Plus, The Revenge, but that's the whole appeal of Cotton, because it is a cute-em-up Space Harrier style game, and it works so long as you enjoy that kind of aesthetic. From a graphical standpoint though, this game looks beautiful, and in particular on the final stage where it really feels like you are flying on a broomstick, diving in and out of various pieces of a castle and a fairground that's gone a bit weird. There are some really beautiful elements here. Not quite as beautiful as modern day on-rail shooters, and I'm going to name drop Air Twister here, which I thought was an absolutely stunning game. This isn't quite hitting those levels, but the polish of the graphic style really does shine here with Rainbow Cotton, and its bright vibrancy really sells what it's trying to do. That said though, there's a distinct lack of options in this game, and documentation to go with it. So, there's no manual, so therefore you don't know what the controls are. It doesn't explain any of the game mechanics, such as being able to level up your shot. Apparently you can sacrifice your fairies to build up the level of your shots, but I don't know how, and it never explains it. It also has no screen ratios for a PC game. I find that very odd. And there's a highly build retro mode, but all it does is change the graphics to 4x3 and put some scan lines on, and it's the exact same game. So it doesn't really work as a proper distinct retro mode. It feels like it's missing a lot of very basic options that you would expect in a game in 2024, and that just surprises me considering we're going for quality of life improvements and a remaster. Talking of quality of life improvements, there's quite a lot to talk about here. Firstly, the hitboxes and hit detection of this game is greatly improved compared to the original, and it makes the game feel more fairer and therefore more playable. The new graphics are great, the music feels brighter and just as catchy as what it was before, and the anime FMV sequences that take place in between certain parts of a level as well as in between levels are beautiful, but they've been AI upscaled, and so they flicker a little bit as scenes pan around, so it doesn't quite feel the smoothest, but it's still nice to see them in all of their glory. I would argue that potentially the originals might still be better though. The quality of life improvement that I thought would be here, but is missing, is auto shoot or auto fire. The auto fire is in this game, but it is so slow that it's actually unusable, and so you will just be spamming shoot for a good hour and a bit as you go through the 5 stages of this game. 5 stages doesn't sound too much, but the stages are quite lengthy, and they also have multiple routes with optional, kind of depending on which route you go, sub-bosses as you travel through. So it does pay to replay these games, and you can do so in solo or co-op depending on what you prefer. Other cool things that you can do as well are changing the controls so that you can have normal controls, so that up means up and down means down, or you can go proper flight sim and have reversed controls. And the original controls, where things just feel absolutely crazy and all over the place, can also be turned on in retro mode too, but I'd strongly recommend not doing it because it makes the game 100 times worse. The main problem though with Rainbow Cotton is that fundamentally this game still has some of its foundational problems that the original one has. The enemy designs feel more annoying rather than challenging. They send out weird patterns, like just shooting towards you, but you can't always see what's coming, and you can't always judge exactly where you are versus where the enemy fire is because of the perspective issue that you have with this game, and that still remains. Now, sometimes these are problems just with on-rail shooters in general, but the perception problem is something that plagues Rainbow Cotton today, and even though it's better with this new version, it still causes you more damage than you feel like it should do when you think you've missed something and clearly you haven't. And this is really noticeable when you get into tea time at the end of each level, where like boxes of tea come towards you in tea lights and you're supposed to collect them, and you think you've lined up something and it just screams past you and you're like, what? And the same applies to enemy fire too. And it's those kind of things where you think, this was baked into the original design, and there's not really a lot that you can do to remaster and improve that without just ripping the game open and starting again from scratch. So long as you can take that with a pinch of salt, this is still not a top tier on-rails shooter, but it's absolutely the most definitive version of Rainbow Cotton that there is out there. However, I would still recommend Cotton Reboot and Cotton Rock and Roll, especially as that's the new entry into the series, far higher than this. And now I would probably recommend some of the retro ports that have not really had many quality of life features added to them over this one as well. Is it terrible? Absolutely not. It's just not the shining example of what the Cotton series can do, and it's a lot of glorious paint and lipstick on what is fundamentally a piggy design hiding behind in the background. So I hope that makes sense. It's also worth noting this game is actually quite difficult, so whilst it looks cute on the exterior, it packs a punch inside. So when you die, you start at the back of the level at the beginning again if you haven't reached the boss. So deep breath, go again, and you'll learn to love the weird intricacies of Rainbow Cotton over time, but it's just not that best representation of the Cotton series. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.